Paris, 1987. A 12-year-old steps onto a runway, lights hot, crowd alert, every eye locked on a girl who still does homework between fittings. 3 years later, that same teenager lives alone in a 3-floor Manhattan apartment, makes backstage quick changes for Versace, and leaves $100 bills like they're singles. What happens when an industry built on youth and beauty discovers a child who possesses both an extraordinary measure? What happens when that child grows up, makes choices the industry doesn't like, and threatens to speak uncomfortable truths? This is the story of Beverly Peele, a girl who broke racial barriers and made fashion history before she could legally drive, only to discover that the same industry that celebrated her youth would punish her for growing up. Her journey reveals how the fashion world systematically exploits young talent, only to abandon them when they assert their independence. Beverly Peele never set out to be a model. Born in Los Angeles in 1975, she treated modeling like an after-school gig until the work sped past her control. At 12 in 1987 lies, she was already walking runways in Paris, an age when classmates were swapping homework notes. The gap was stark. A child moving through adult rooms with almost no watchful help. By 14 in 1989, she hit milestones few reach so young. She became the first African-American model to appear on the main issue cover of Madame Wissel, and the same year booked a Versace campaign. She worked beside Naomi Campbell and Cindy Crawford. The industry turned praise into labels. Some called her Baby Naomi, admiring the rise while ignoring what it said about age. Others said, "See Coat," a joke about the way a teenager could peel off $100 bills, a sign of money without guidance. Cash moved faster than advice. While still in high school, she lived alone in a 3-floor New York apartment, juggling shoots and fittings and finishing schoolwork backstage. Brands like Ralph Lauren, Donna Karan, and Versace sought her out, and she walked for Chanel and Comme Garçon. Under the gloss, the isolation grew. Flights blurred weeks. She woke unsure which country she was in. Her life set by call sheets, not a teenage routine. Opportunity came without protection. She faced much older designers and photographers and had to manage grown-up demands without steady support. She later said she felt herself growing up too fast. Parties and pressure came early. The job's constant scrutiny and travel wore her down. Drugs became a way to cope. Not a thrill, but a mask for fear and fatigue. In truth, she did not grasp the pull she had. She says she was just having fun, unaware that most adults around her were focused on what she could earn, not who she might become. The business loved the image and neglected the person. It took her youth and called it success. While the girl behind the pictures learned the cost alone, by the early 1990s, her face was everywhere. More than 250 magazine covers carried her image. Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar among them. In 1993, People named the 18-year-old one of its 50 most beautiful people in the world. That pushed her beyond insider praise into true mainstream fame. Music videos followed. Heavy D and the Boys, Jodsy, George Michael, and acting offers began to appear. From the street view, it looked like a path with no dips. Inside the job, the weight felt different. As one of the few black models allowed that level of reach, each cover and campaign carried extra meaning. People judged not only if the photo worked, but what her presence was supposed to say about progress in a field with a long record of shutting women like her out. The applause could feel conditional. The room loved the product and forgot the person. Money poured in from editorials, campaigns, runway shows, and endorsements, but no one taught her how to hold it. Living alone so young meant signing contracts, managing dates, and reading rooms most adults find tricky. The work extracted value from her youth and sold it as independence, while offering none of the steady structure young people need. Access never paused. Parties, late rooms, and easy entry sat within reach. She was still a teenager drawing her own lines on the fly, and the fallout felt far away. When your next job depends on being easy to book and easy to like, saying no is harder than it sounds. People in power saw the talent and built plans around it. Care for her well-being rarely made the list. Youth was not a red flag. It was a sales pitch. The same machine that sped her rise set the terms of a coming fall. Early success that tied her to the business, support that lasted only while she fit the mold, and a network that would fade the moment she made a choice it did not like. When she pushed back, the room pulled its support away. In 1993, at 17, and still at the peak of her career, Beverly learned she was pregnant. The reaction was swift and harsh. Agents who had cheered her wins turned to warnings. Friends tied to her rise worried about their own stake. Even her mother told her not to continue. The message was the same from all sides. A pregnancy would mess up her looks, and if she had the baby, she would never work again. For a teenager living by call sheets and fittings, it felt like a forced choice. The industry did not make room for a young mother. Models were expected to be free and always available. Keeping the child meant stepping off the path she had walked since she was 12. Choosing work meant losing something deeper. The adults were nearly united in what they wanted. The decision stayed with her. She chose the life growing inside her. She kept the baby. "I did not care what the industry thought," she said later. Motherhood came first. In May 1993, at 18, she gave birth to her daughter, Cairo. After that, the support faded fast. Calls slowed. Jobs thinned. It was not an accident. Beverly pushed back the only way the business seemed to value by performance. Almost right after leaving the hospital, she hired a trainer and forced herself into a strict no-fat, low-calorie diet and workout to meet the expected body lines. CNN Style featured her post-pregnancy routine in 1994, treating the effort like a show instead of a normal recovery that needed care. She did everything asked of her body. The people in charge looked away. The top bookings and covers did not return at the same pace. Publications that had once called often were now out of reach. The warning that she would be finished if she chose motherhood became a quiet practice. One fan said what many saw. "It's unfortunate that she had trouble getting the same jobs after she gave birth. She was a great model." Beverly's own view was sharper. After she had the baby, it was all over. Her rise did not stall from a lack of talent or effort. It stalled because the business would not accommodate a teenage mother who wanted to continue working. The loss was shared and the message to young models was plain. The professional slide was steep. Income streams that had once seemed endless constricted quickly, and a young woman who had spent freely without adult coaching now had an infant and a scarce calendar. She tried acting, Sister, Girlfriends, and later a 2002 film, but the pivot couldn't replicate the security modeling had given her as a teenager. Depression crept in and drugs reappeared. Years later, on the Tyra Banks show, she spoke directly about that period, her battles with drugs and depression, and the identity hole that opened when the title model no longer carried her life. The distance between how the world had seen her and how she was living grew sharp. By the early 2000s, she was parenting without the relationship that once promised stability. Money, which had come in flood years before, became a calculation. In 2005, desperation broke through judgment. She found a lost credit card at a supermarket and used it to purchase essentials, a refrigerator, washer, and dryer. She was caught and charged. In 2006, a judge sentenced her to 3 years of probation and 300 hours of community service and ordered restitution with additional fees. The tabloid view would call it a fall. The closer view shows a former teen star cut off from the engine that had fed on her youth, furnishing a home with basics. The conditions that produced the mistake were the same ones that once delivered applause, a system that extracts early and leaves little behind when the spotlight shifts. Around 2000s, as Beverly searched for stability and another professional foothold, she met Peter Nygård, a Canadian fashion executive known for lavish parties, a fortune built on women's apparel and a public persona projected from mansions. She attended a party at his Marina del Rey property. She later likened it to a big, beautiful treehouse with lifestyles of the rich and famous on loop featuring Nygård himself. Within 2 days, he offered her a 3-year modeling contract for someone squeezed out of the high end of the industry after becoming a mother. The offer looked like a lifeline. As soon as she accepted, he'd her. Beverly described it as lasting like an eternity. Though the minutes were few, the point was not duration, but power. He took what he wanted. The next morning, a new BMW truck arrived at her home with a big purple bow. She sent it back. Silence followed. She was bound by a contract with her attacker, about to be married, and terrified of the consequences of accusing a wealthy man with lawyers and reach. She kept working with a game face, showing up for shoots while carrying a trauma she told no one. Then came a pregnancy she did not initially connect to the assault. She married her fiancé, who, like Beverly, was black and thrilled to be a father. In the delivery room in 2001, their son Trey was born unmistakably white. The truth landed with impact that needed no words. Nyg was the father. Beverly was flooded with revulsion and grief. She struggled to hold or breastfeed her newborn. Her mother had to place the baby in her arms and help her bond. The marriage couldn't carry the weight of that revelation. They separated when Trey was about 10 months old. Ending the marriage didn't end the tie to her rapist. It ensured it would last for years. Nygård wanted to be involved in his son's life and had the means and counsel to pursue it. He tracked Trey's schooling and sports, contributed financially, and pressed for custody time, Christmases, summers, visits that required logistics and often Beverly's presence. She brought her son to see the man who had assaulted her because she believed Trey deserved to know his biological father. The personal cost was staggering. Night terrors, screaming, sweating, waking to fear lasted for years. Therapy was complicated by secrecy. Friends could sense strain without understanding it. She survived by compartmentalizing. The industry that had first taught her to smile through pressure had, in a different context, taught her to keep impossible pain off her face. Children noticed what adults try to hide. As Trey grew older, he detected his mother's discomfort. Beverly kept the truth from him for as long as she could to protect his relationship with his father and to preserve the fragile stability she'd built. She reappeared briefly in the public eye in 2017 on the Lifetime reality series Growing Up Supermodel alongside her daughter Cairo. Even then, the central trauma stayed buried. Public presence did not equal public truth. The turning point in Beverly Peele's decades-long silence came from an unexpected source. Her son Trey himself. It was like we need to speak up about you need to tell our story and make sure other people are not scared to come out, because if you come out we'll follow, many are. And I think I'm okay with it as long as you're okay with it and we could just go through this together. That's how I kind of described it to him. Around 2013, when he turned 12, the same age Beverly had been when she entered modeling, he started asking about the strain he saw between his parents. He noticed her discomfort around his biological father and wanted to understand why. When he finally asked why she seemed to hate Peter Nygård, Beverly told him the truth. Nygård had assaulted her, and Trey was conceived in that assault. Trey did not pull away. He became her ally and urged her to speak. "Mom, you have to speak out," he told her. "If you come forward, maybe other women will follow. You can set an example of how not to be afraid." His push, along with a broader shift toward believing survivors and holding powerful men to account, gave her the resolve to step forward. In 2020, as other women publicly accused Nygård abuse, Beverly joined them. She shared her story in the Discovery Plus documentary Unseemly, the investigation of Peter Nygård. She also gave interviews, including a high-profile appearance on the Tamron Hall show in early 2021, where she described the situation and its aftermath. Speaking about her son's birth, she said, "I did not want to put the baby's smell on me." Telling the truth had a price. She knew it would change how her son understood his beginnings. Yet, they chose honesty together. She was not alone. Law enforcement acted. In December 2020, Canadian authorities arrested Nygård after U.S. prosecutors charged him with the 79-year-old awaited trial and vigorously denied all allegations through his attorneys. Beverly's voice added profile and weight to the case. Her account carried particular force because she had maintained contact with Nygård for years, something skeptics often cite to doubt survivors. For her, speaking out was frightening and freeing at the same time. After decades of holding the secret alone, she could finally tell the story plainly. The shame and isolation began to lift as she connected with other survivors and felt support from people who believed her. Speaking out changed how Beverly lived with the past and how she and her son related to each other. "It's definitely helped us both heal," she said after telling the truth. They had carried the secret for years. Once it was named, they could care for each other without the strain of hiding. Her decision also demonstrated that survivors can reclaim their story even many years later. The usual myths did not apply. She had kept working under a contract linked to the man who hurt her, stayed in contact when it served his interests, and waited 20 years to report. None of that erased the facts. Her account was detailed, steady, and echoed by other evidence and other women. Support followed. Survivors reached out. Legal voices noted that her words helped show how job offers and access can be used to set up assault. Coverage began to look at the system in fashion instead of treating her like a suspect. Beverly then used her voice for change. She spoke about real protections for young models and described plans for a placement group that would mentor, teach, and shield them. It was the help she had needed at 12 when the work moved faster than any guardrail. In interviews, she said life might have been different if she had someone to call and a place to turn. By sharing her story, she became that first point of contact for others. She repeated a simple truth. No one should be silent, and shame belongs to the abuser, not the victim. Her push looked beyond a single case. She argued for clear oversight of minors, stronger safeguards against predatory behavior, and an acknowledgement that fame and youth create vulnerabilities that bad actors target. Her path offered a plain map for prevention. This shift from victim to advocate was more than personal relief. Naming abuse can help stop it. By linking her story to a broader record of harm, she helped people understand how power imbalances enable abuse to persist. The effect extended further. More discussion about keeping young people safe, the long-lasting impact of early harm, and why late reports still deserve to be taken seriously. Her advocacy continues today. Beverly Peele's story forces a hard look at industries that profit from youth and beauty. Exploitation can arrive quietly. Boundaries fade. Safeguards never appear. And people are punished for choices that do not fit the brand. The fashion world applauded her rise, but did not protect the person doing the work. It enjoyed the benefits of her age and access while offering little of the guidance that keeps a teenager safe. When she chose to have a baby and prioritize her family, the support fell away. What remains is the lesson. Early success needs guardrails, real mentors, clear policies, and leaders who act when lines are crossed. Careers should never depend on silence or compliance. Believing survivors is not a slogan. It is a standard that sets how the next case is handled and how the next young person is treated. Her path shows that truth has a use beyond a headline. It sparks change, helps others find language for their own pain, and narrows the space where abuse can hide. The images we admire are made by people with lives, boundaries, and the right to be safe at work. The way forward is simple to name and hard to do. Protect minors, set firm rules, and keep power from closing the door on those who speak. If that becomes the norm, talent can thrive without harm, for good everywhere.